Ciao Behrouz, benvenuto su Lucy, è davvero un piacere averti qui. Tu sei poeta, sei giornalista, sei scrittore, sei documentarista, sei attivista per i diritti umani. Sei curdo iraniano, hai lasciato l'Iran nel 2013, tu hai passato parecchi guai con il regime dell'Iran e da lì sei scappato alla volta dell'Indonesia per raggiungere poi l'Australia. Dopo numerose peripezie in Australia ti sei arrivato, lì hai passato 5 anni recluso all'interno dell'isola di Manus. Questo perché l'Australia è uno dei paesi che ha le norme anti-immigrazione più dure e repressive al mondo. La tua storia, che è una storia che ha sia valore testimoniale sia valore letterario, è raccontata nel tuo primo libro, Nessun amico se non le montagne, che è pubblicato in italiano da editore. Io vorrei iniziare questa conversazione chiedendoti come ti trovi adesso che ti sei lasciato alle spalle quella situazione in Nuova Zelanda? Se ti senti ancora un esule, perché mi chiedo poi in realtà se una volta che lo sei stato, che sei stato un esule, tu non smetti di esserlo.
Thank you very much. It's a very long story. I was there for 6 years.
Yeah,
6 years and 2 months. I didn't start to write against that system after 3 years. I started at the first days, but it took 2 years that I established a network in Australia and I felt safer. Then I started to publish my works under my real name.
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that is a very good question to ask from a refugee because as a refugee, I have quite a poetic imagination about being a refugee, but of course it's a very sad and difficult as well. That I describe refugees as a bird that you lose your nest.
Okay.
Or someone touch your nest and you don't feel safe and you leave that nest. So when you leave that nest, you just go to other trees, and of course it takes time that you make a nest somewhere else. But still you remember that where you come from, still you feel that you are exiled. And of course I'm exiled. But regarding my feeling towards New Zealand, I was in New Zealand I've been there for 4 years, but recently I visited Australia for the first time. And when I went to Australia, on that moment, I realized that actually Wellington is my home. So
Okay.
that sense of belonging I had when I left. So now that I'm in Europe, I think I have that feeling more and deeper. Because, when you are in a place, when you live in a society for a while, of course, you have that feeling. But creating that feeling is not easy because I think that sense of belonging comes from contribution. If the refugee contribute to the society in any way that they want, I think after a while you feel some kind like sense of belonging.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it's quite interesting that I haven't been in Australia and I won't live in Australia, but still I'm quite attached to Australia as well because I was writing about Australia for many years. So I contributed to the culture, the politics in that country. So still I'm attached even if I don't want or if it's difficult for me to have that feeling because of the experience, because they jailed me.
Don't you think that's a kind of contradiction, like that Australia gave you some prizes, some literary prizes for your work, but not really facing, from a political point of view, the situation you have experienced?
Yeah, I think that is a good question as well. And I should say that the first award that I received was actually from Italy. For journalism, I received an award called Anna Politkovskaya Award for Journalism. I don't know when it was, 2016 or 17.
Okay.
Or that was the first one or the second one, I'm not sure. Yeah. And that time, that was very important. Of course, these awards empowered me to continue to fight. But we cannot really look at Australia just as put whole Australia in one category. Because, of course, I was jailed by Australian government. and that government was elected by people of Australia. But a part of Australia's civil society was fighting against that system as well. So I can't say that I was allied with the good side of Australia against the ugly side of Australia. So that's why I think we should recognize that this resistance that I always talk about, this resistance that I've been a part of it for many years against the Australian detention industry, the Australian detention regime. I didn't do that just by myself. It was a collective resistance that I was just a part of it. It was participated or started by refugees in Manus Island through protest, hunger strike, all of this, and in the same time, a part of civil society in Australia as well. I think they've been a part of this resistance as well. So that's why I think receiving these awards were important, because it was a recognition and it was a kind of a way to empower that resistance, that fight.
Una cosa che mi ha molto colpito del tuo libro è la forma. Il tuo libro non ha date, non ha elementi temporali che identifichino quello che accade in modo netto, dando comunque al lettore una sensazione di angoscia, di confusione, che immagino fosse quella che hai provato tu all'interno del campo di detenzione.
I didn't feel safe with the authorities, so I couldn't write on just paper and just keep it and save it and use it later or publish it later or write it as a letter and send it out. I was using WhatsApp, so I was writing in WhatsApp. WhatsApp was my office. I just send it as a long messages. I don't say that I didn't edit it, but it was difficult to get back to my writing.
Quando hai avuto accesso a un telefono, a Manus hai iniziato a mandare parti del libro al tuo amico Omid Figan, che poi ha lavorato anche alla traduzione del testo dal farsi all'inglese. Ma la cosa che mi pare interessante è come in qualche modo ci fosse un'urgenza di scrittura.
Yeah, I think writing in prison is easier.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easier because you are more focused, but it's an act of resistance. So when you are free, you don't have to resist against the system like that. You don't have to challenge that system.
Okay.
So it's an act of resistance, is a way of surviveness. So probably if I wouldn't write like that, if I wouldn't fight against the system, I don't say that I wouldn't survive, but I was a different person, because surviveness in my mind is protect your brain, your mind and your heart.
Mandelstam, il grande poeta russo, quando si rese conto di essere molto vicino all'arresto, iniziò a girare con una copia della commedia di Dante in tasca, perché l'idea di essere recluso senza Dante lo distruggeva, lo faceva stare molto male. Sia la scrittura sia la lettura in modo diverso sono una consolazione, sono una risorsa per chi si trova in una situazione di prigionia, come un dialogo a due che fai con un altro autore. Chi ti ha tenuto compagnia, quale scrittore ti ha tenuto compagnia durante la tua prigionia, quale libro avresti voluto portare se avessi voluto scegliere, e se le parole degli altri ti hanno aiutato a trovare le tue.
Of course I had some books later, because through internet I could download some, So I had access to some books, but in that prison, actually my connection mostly was with singing. So inside the prison camp, I was known as a singer because I used to sing a lot. So the prisoners heard me a lot, but it was quite interesting. It was a very small place, as much as a football ground. And I used to sit in the corner of the prison and sing in evening or in the toilets. I was pretending that the other prisoners don't hear me, so I'm not bothering them. And after a while, I accepted that. So I thought that people don't hear me, so I was singing. But later, of course, I became aware that people hear me They know me as a singer, but it's hard to say that which books or which writers. But I remember for a while I used to read quite Samuel Beckett a lot. Inside that prison, and also I used to listen to Western classic music a lot.
Okay.
That I used to do a lot. So my connection mostly was with music rather than writing or reading.
Dopo aver raccontato così bene da un punto di vista letterario la tua esperienza, non hai un pochettino paura di essere confinato in un'altra forma di prigionia? Cioè quella del testimone, in un ruolo che rischia in qualche modo di obbligarti a ripetere sempre quello che è accaduto senza darti poi la possibilità di avere una maggiore libertà espressiva?
No, I think always I have been an independent person. You know, I used to work with many humanitarian organizations, but always I had distance from them as a person, and sometimes criticize them. So I've been always independent, and when I'm independent, I'm free. When I started to write against that system, of course, no one knew me. That moment that I wanted to smuggle a phone in, no one knew me. And sometimes it's difficult to stay as an independent person because, especially in my case, because my case later became quite a known case in the media. So when your case become known in the media in public, it become much harder to stay independent. But always I've been independent, and I think I pay cost for that as well. You know, it's not easy to stay independent. Not only with humanitarian organizations, just I use them as an example. Even with in the media, political movements in Iran, in Australia, always I've been independent, and I'm not struggling to stay independent. I don't feel comfortable if I lose my independence. That is my character.
Do you think literature and art can have an impact on politics, or it's just like an impact that you can see from a media point of view, but not from a political point of view?
I've said that a lot about journalism and role of journalism in that context. Actually, refugees have been dehumanized. Media gave that space to politicians and people who want to make propaganda against refugees and dehumanize refugees. Media has been used by the politicians as well. So it's very paradoxical, but of course media create a space for the people like me as well to share their stories. But my problem with media in that context is language. So I think journalism language is not a capable language that we tell those kind of stories. The media language are good to make people aware of a situation, but that for people who understand and feel detainees, feel refugees, feel people, I think we need artistic language like literature. This question is for a long time, that art and literature can create change. So it's a big question, but I think always I say that they do their work and we do our work, you know? But definitely there is an image, like a colonial image about minorities, marginalized people that created throughout decades, you know, and I think the role of literature and art is to challenge those images that people already accepted them or internalized them. That's why I think it's the most powerful language, to challenge those images.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Lucy.